Today, we are diving deep into something that so many of us struggle with, building good habits. Why does it feel like such an uphill battle sometimes, especially if you have ADHD? We're going to get into the actual neuroscience of it all, and I'll tell you right now, it has almost nothing to do with willpower.
You know the feeling, right? You decide you're going to start exercising every morning, or maybe meal prepping for the week. You're all in, and then, a week later, you're right back where you started. It's so frustrating, and it's easy to feel like you've failed. But what if I told you it's not a failure of character at all? What if it's really just a matter of brain chemistry? And to really get why this matters so much, just look at this number, 45%. That's how much of what we do every single day is driven by our habits. Think about that. Nearly half of your day is on autopilot. So if you can crack the code on how to build good habits, you're literally changing the game for any long-term goal you have.
Does this little voice in your head sound familiar? When a new routine doesn't stick, we tend to turn it inwards, right? We blame ourselves. But the whole point we're making today is that this kind of thinking is just wrong. The habits you want to build are important to you. The challenge is just way deeper than simple motivation.
Okay, so let's start by digging into the myths versus the reality of this whole experience. To really get why this struggle feels so much bigger for adults with ADHD, we have to debunk a couple of common ideas that are probably holding you back.
So the two biggest myths are that you just need more willpower, or you just need to get motivated. But for the ADHD brain, that's like trying to start a car with a dead battery. Relying on willpower is incredibly tough because your executive functions, things like focus and impulse control, are already working overtime. It's a battery that just runs out. And motivation? Oh man, that is notoriously fickle with ADHD. You can't just sit around and wait to feel like it. You need a system that works even when you're not feeling it at all.
So to build that better system, we first need to understand the basic mechanics of how any habit actually gets formed in the first place. And it turns out, our brains use a really simple three-part process to put our behaviors on autopilot.
This process is called the habit loop, and you can just think of it as a mental shortcut. Your brain is lazy in the best possible way. It wants to conserve energy. So when it recognizes a pattern, it automates it. That's exactly why you can brush your teeth or even drive to work without really thinking through every single little step.
So here are the 3 steps. First, you've got a cue, which is just a trigger. It could be a time of day, a place, even a feeling. Let's say the cue is feeling tired in the morning. Second, there's the routine. That's the action you take. In this case, making coffee. And finally, number 3, the reward. That amazing jolt of energy from the caffeine. That reward is what tells your brain, hey, that worked. Let's lock this loop in for next time.
Okay, now we get to the really cool stuff, the core neuroscience. Because the habit loop isn't just some abstract idea. It is a physical process that relies on specific parts of your brain and one very important chemical messenger.
The part of your brain that's running this whole show is the basal ganglia. This is your brain's autopilot system. Seriously, it's responsible for all those automatic behaviors, from riding a bike to typing on a keyboard. When a habit is locked in and the loop is running, the basal ganglia just takes over, which frees up your conscious mind to think about other things. And the fuel for this entire engine? It's dopamine. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter of reward and motivation. So when you get that reward at the end of the loop, you know, the energy from the coffee, that clean feeling after you brush your teeth, it's dopamine that delivers that little hit of satisfaction. It's the chemical signal that basically yells at your basal ganglia, that was good, do it again. And here it is. This is where it all clicks into place for ADHD. Research consistently shows that the ADHD brain has a different relationship with dopamine. We're talking lower baseline levels and differences in how the brain cells even respond to it. This fundamentally changes how that whole reward system works. This really shows the downstream effect of that. See, we basically have 2 systems for getting things done. The conscious pilot, run by your prefrontal cortex, which takes a ton of energy, and the automatic autopilot, run by the basal ganglia. Because that dopamine reward signal can be weaker or less consistent in the ADHD brain, the autopilot has a really hard time learning the routine. The habit loop just doesn't get reinforced as strongly. And what happens? You're forced to rely on the exhausting, energy-draining pilot for simple tasks that should be automatic. That is a recipe for burnout.
And this is exactly why just trying harder is terrible advice. The goal isn't to fight your own brain wiring. It's to start using clever strategies that actually work with it.
So let's just completely reframe this whole challenge. It's not a personal failing. It is a biological reality.
And once you really accept that, you can stop blaming yourself and start looking for the right tools for the job. You can switch from being a drill sergeant to becoming an engineer of your own habits.
One of the most powerful tools out there is something called habit stacking. The idea here is actually really simple. You just anchor a new behavior you want to start to a habit that's already totally automatic for you. The old habit becomes the cue for the new one, which lets you basically hijack an existing powerful neural pathway. So here's what that actually looks like. Your morning coffee, that's already an automatic habit. So the formula becomes, after I pour my coffee, I will take my vitamins. Or, after I get out of bed, I will stretch for just 1 minute. And notice how tiny and specific these are. After I brush my teeth, I will floss 1 tooth. Yeah, that sounds ridiculous, but that's the whole point. And that leads right into the next key strategy, the 1% rule. Forget about trying to overhaul your entire life overnight. Just focus on making a new habit stupid small, so easy that you feel almost zero resistance to doing it. In the beginning, the goal isn't huge results. It's just repetition. Consistency is what rewires your brain, not intensity.
Okay, here are a few more brain-friendly strategies. Make good habits way easier by creating a friction-free environment. If your gym clothes are already laid out, you've just removed a huge barrier. Use visual cues. For the ADHD brain, out of sight, out of mind is a real thing, so sticky notes are your best friend. And finally, reward your effort. Celebrate the act of just showing up, not perfect performance. This helps give your brain that little dopamine hit it needs to reinforce the loop.
So what's the big takeaway here? Building habits when you have ADHD is all about changing your approach. It's about understanding the unique way your brain is wired and using clever, compassionate strategies to create routines that will actually stick.
And maybe most importantly, it's about self-compassion. You are going to miss a day. A habit will fall off track. That's not a failure, it's just data. When you stumble, don't beat yourself up. Get curious. What got in the way? What can I adjust? Progress is never a straight line. Every setback is just a chance to fine-tune your system.
So I'll leave you with this question. Forget about trying to force a new routine with willpower. Instead, start thinking like an engineer. Now that you understand the mechanics, the cue, the routine, the reward, and the huge role dopamine plays, what's the first, tiny 1% improvement that you can build into your life starting today?